Testing. Can everybody? Ooh, I guess everybody can hear me about that guy. That was getting loud. This would be. Thank you so much. I'm going to finish this talking about the prodigal son. How many of you, during the past 7 days, sat down and kind of allow that lesson to kind of circulate in your mind a little bit? How many of you done that or thought about it? Not just you or I being off in the position of the one that's making the mishaps, making the wrong steps, but just looking at the parable itself and seeing how many lessons God has afforded us, the guidance. And not only that, but the hope that he just inspires in us to realize that our bad decision doesn't necessarily lead to total bad endings. We can at times kind of recoup, readdress what's really meaningful in this life, move forward, making better decisions, learning from life lessons so that we can do better in the future than we have done in the past. I think I said last week, we're not just talking about this parable in the sense of it being of a spiritual development, but we're also talking about social what? What's that word I use? Spiritual development and social betterment. You know y'all got it. You got it right down on the fact there. So today, back up on that just a little, moving forward. Let's look in our Bibles, if you don't mind, and let's go to, what is that? Luke, 15? Is that correct? Is that correct? Beginning with verse number around 11 or so. I think that's where it starts. And I made mention last week that it says that a certain man. What's so important about the word certain man? Certain. That I had made mention. What's so important about certain? It's a real person. It's not some hypothetical situation. It's not some kind of thing that we're working through just so we can teach something. But this is something also that really, actually happened. Now, you and I may get around there and talk sometimes in parables with folks we know, our children, our loved ones, our friends, and we may bring up something that may not be true, but we know right here it says a certain man. Whenever we find that word certain, you better believe it, that's real life incident. We're in the book of Luke, chapter 15. We're going to finish up today as we'll be talking about another area that kind of blends into these three does. We'll talk about the persistence, the lack of appreciation for what he had, and then next week, the persistence. Are we talking about resolution or decisions? So we'll talk about that as well. In Luke chapter 15, if I can never find it. Verse 11, there's a certain man, and he had two sons, right? The younger one and the older one. Usually we get the word younger, we're talking about somebody that's younger in age. It's not generally mean they in their pre-teens or anything like that, but it's somebody that's younger. And we usually use the word somebody that's a youngster. It's not too old. He's not up in age, not up in years, but he's somebody that's developing in developmental stage, because we want us to move forward. And we know that young as we are, we don't always have all the facts. We don't always have the mental ability to think as deeply as we ought. We aren't as rational as we should be. So consequently, we act impulsively sometime. And we want it now. What's the sense of the word that we use that sometimes people feel like they are owed this? What is that called? Entitlement. And so the point of it, I do believe that it is a nice thing. It is a great thing for parents to be able to have something to leave their children. But then sometimes they get an inheritance afterwards, and sometimes they're being blessed while they're moving on the way. Now, some people may be thinking, since they don't have a lot to leave their children, that they somehow and in some way haven't been the parent that they should have been because they don't have a lot to leave them. Well, I would simply say that going through the course of life itself, when we are providing for them, setting up the way for them so that they'll be able to capitalize on our investment, both, socially, spiritually, and sometimes monetarily. We hope that they can be able to take advantage of all those things. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and I do know that sometimes people feel that they haven't been the parent that they should have been because they haven't all of these things. And sometimes parents believe that maybe it's something I didn't do that could have helped him or her make better decisions. Parents at times often will blame themselves for their children's decision or their lack of development, so to speak. But when we read this proverb, this parable here, we know that there are certain men, right? He got all of his stuff. Verse 11, he said, a certain man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, the younger, we usually get this word neo, something new, something young, not all of that particular matured in life, as far as his age and as far as his thinking is concerned. His cognitive abilities may not have been all the way there as it should have been. The younger one said to the father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days after the younger son gathered all together, he took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance in riotous living. In riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in the land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself, cleaved himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his field to feed swine. Here we go. Today we're supposed to be talking about and discussing about his lack of appreciation for what he had. What is that old saying? You don't miss your water until the what? Till the well runs dry. Or you never knew how well you had it until you don't have it. Those kind of cliches, those statements, they're all true. And I do believe that sometimes we have a tendency to look back and with a great deal of regret, a great deal of remorse, because we haven't made the best choices in life. But here we are now. Here's this young man. He's coming from a poor family. Is that correct? I just asked you. That wasn't a trick question. Is he coming from a poor family or a good family? A pretty well-to-do family? He comes from a well-to-do family. And generally speaking, when well-to-do families have it, nobody have wants. They might have a lot of desire of wanting to do some things, but they don't have wants, right? They are pretty well taken care of. Here he is with his father. He has a lot, and he's expecting to get a lot later. As I said, we're talking about this inheritance that he's going to get later on if he could just be patient and await that great day or that great time of sharing. But we oftentimes, when we want it when? We didn't want it yesterday. We want it now. We don't want it tomorrow. We want it now. And so he has it all. Can you imagine? We know that he had it all because he said, my father has a lot of servants, and his servant has what? So he came from a background where everybody had everything. So he had it all. And sometimes I suppose that's what we do at times when we're used to having things. We don't really think about it or appreciate it as much as we should. Now, I'm not saying that we ought to just have our children suffer. I'm not thinking that we ought to just give them nothing and let them make it on his own or her own. But I'm just simply saying is that there seems to be a lack of cultivation where an individual doesn't have an appreciation for the things that they are enjoying or that they have been provided. Some of us, we haven't had what others have had, and yet when he gets all of this, he doesn't appreciate it till later on. So now, gives us a little insight into his mind. He goes away, now he loses it, and now he needs something. Now, whenever we've been used to having it and not having it, kind of throws us into a pretty bad shock right here. Let's look into the passage just a little bit more. Here he is, got his money, got it on. He had what kind of living? Riotous living, right? So he was having one big party, party after party. And now he just having it all, enjoying it all, and now he's lost it all. Listen to what it said. The Bible simply said is that he spent it, he wasted on his riotous living, at verse number 13. Is that not right? So what do you think about riotous living? He's wasteful anyway. Wasted his money, wasted his home life, wasted his upbringing, wasted his cultural underpinnings. He wasted everything. And now whenever he spent it all, used it all, now he's just right here. And so he enjoyed his life. Now he finds himself out there, no longer with the tiger along us, people who are associated, but people who have abandoned him now. He done spent all his money. Now he's having to suffer. I always simply say, he that had many friends must show himself what? Friendly. Sometimes having friends that we call friends are just not no more than merely people who are associated and can try to get out of us whatever they want. Let's look at Ephesians 5, verse 18, if you don't mind. We're talking about riotous living. Here it's come from a Greek word, asotos, and literally in other places it's asotia. The other word means is that he's having a great big party, and it's gotten away from him, and he's lost it all. Just having a party all the time, and you lose it. I mean, seems like when you don't have to earn it yourself sometimes, perhaps we don't appreciate it as much as we ought. We don't realize the time. We don't realize the effort. We don't realize the sacrifices that have been made in order for us to get to this particular point from a financial standpoint. We don't realize that they had to work several days a week. They had to do all of this, only resting on the Sabbath, but they're working all the other days to get there. But we just have it just laid in our lap, just given to us. We don't recognize how important that is, and sometimes it doesn't have that real meaning. My mom taught me a lot of things. One of the things she taught was the work ethic. And the ideal of it is I saw her working and scrub, and I saw her doing all those things all of her life, and even when she passed, didn't have very much. No, she didn't have a whole lot to leave us, but I inherited a lot from her. So we have inheritance, may not just be monetarily. So what else have we left our children? What else have we built for them? What is it that will carry them on through life, doing the things that they ought to, being in the place that they should, saying the things that they have to? What is it that we've left them? Well, we can leave them all our monies. We can leave them all of our houses and cars. And those things are not bad. If you can do that, that's a good thing. But what have you left them meaningfully that they can look back on when all of life has crumbled, when all the walls have fallen, when all the friends have fled? What would they have? What would they have to look back on. This is what I think one of our comments last week, I think it was Sister Black made mention of about he had memories. Sometimes we don't think about things until we run up against a wall, and that's a sad time to do it because there's a lot of punishment, a lot of pain that perhaps shouldn't be. So we're talking about the problems that we have, the suffering that we have because of our choices. Who have Ephesians 5:18? Somebody read that for me. All right. Be not drunk with wine, which is what now? All right. Anybody got another translation? I like that. King James. Be not drunk with wine, wherein is what? Debauchery. Reckless action. All these come with the word, what leads it? So people usually take this passage, you know what they say, be not drunk with wine, wherein is excess. He said, well, don't do that, just don't get excess. No, here's the Greek word, asatia. The other word of it is that this young boy was going through a big party, and he lost it all. And when he lost it all, he wasn't expecting things to change as they should. He lost it as easily as he got it. There's a famine, an economic downturn, and now he's suffering. I spent it. It's bad economically speaking. And now jobs are scarce. Friends are gone. And I'm in a far country. I'm a long way from home. It's not like he's 2 or 3 miles. He can holler, hey, Dad, I'm coming back. He's a long way. He's a long way from home. They never tell us how he got back home. But he came back somehow. It never told us how long it took him to get back home. But he made it. So when we're up in here thinking about it, not appreciating it, then we have some issues on our hand, right? All right, listen to that. Look at verse number 17. Here it is. He joined himself to a citizen of that country, and the citizen sent him into the field to feed swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husk. But notice what it says. No man gave unto him. Boy, you've been having everything that your beck and call. You can have whatever you want, whenever you want, how much you want it, and how you want it. Now, there's a downturn. That's his problem. That's his consequences or his suffering of his choices. Now I'm here. I didn't think that my money would flee me like that, take wings and fly. I did not think the folks that were hanging around me enjoying it would just disappear. And I didn't think that folks around here would just be so unsympathetic with me. What did he say? He said, but no man did what? Now, do you think that'll make him come to his mind? No man gave him. Wait a minute. I gave everybody else. Nobody given me. Nobody gave him anything. So these kind of things kind of made him really start thinking. I'm having to do something. I'm making myself a hired servant now. I've had it all, and now here I am. But sometimes, and you all can chime in, sometimes it takes time for people to realize just how far they have fallen. Sometimes it takes not just a mere nudging, not just a mere tripping, not just a mere bruising. Sometimes it takes some people a total collapse before they really start thinking. What's your comments on that? What do you think? Sometimes you have to hit the bottom. Yeah. That's a painful drop, isn't it? Sometimes I had to hit the bottom. You would hate that, but that's what people do. But what leads us to all our decisions and choices? The Bible said he came to himself. Is that right? So if an individual had to come to himself, was he at himself? Said he came to himself. So was he at himself? That's what we used to say in Tennessee. Was he at himself? Was he? So he's lost it all. He's not thinking clearly. So he lost it. Now he got to go into this thing of trying to simply say, oh my God, boy, I just everything I've ever known, it just flew out the window. And man, I'm just out of my mind. I'm not thinking clearly. Rationality is nothing but a hiss and a byword. And here I am now thinking about exactly where I am. I came to myself. It took me a while. I was out of my mind, doing what I want to do, how I want to do it, and for how long I want to do it. But sometimes it takes us this point to where we have to sit down and just have a little conversation with ourselves. He realized when he came to himself, he said, oh my God, I'm here. I'm away from home, doing things that I wouldn't even imagine doing. Here I am thinking about eating things I wouldn't think about eating. What in the world has happened to me? Well, he didn't appreciate home. He finally came to himself. And what is it that he said? What he said in verse number 17. Will someone read that for us? Verse 17 of Luke 15. He has to come to himself. And I just simply say to somebody, man, what's wrong with him, man? I think he done lost his mind. Well, she ain't thinking clearly. That's what we say. But here this fellow, he is not at himself. It took him going broke. It took him being isolated. It took him being disrespected. It took him hitting the wall before he started sitting down and thinking, man, I messed up. And I say sometimes we're talking about getting things together. We come into this ideal of thinking of who we are and where we are and decisions that we've made and how we need to do things differently in order to make some positive change in our lives as far as that. And I say sometimes to patients and clients of mine, I said, listen, now tell me, what were you thinking? So what? What were you thinking? What was going on in your mind when you did this? What did you hope to get from this? They sat there and they puzzled. They can't think. I said, you didn't have nothing in mind? Clearly I didn't. So every time I see people, my point is to get them to face themselves, to see exactly what reality really is, and see how they could be, if they're irrational, I'm trying to get them to be rational. And they call that rational emotive therapy. I try to get them to see things more clearly, to think clearly, and try to get them to see that their thought process is not correct. Then some of them will be simply say, oh man, John, I messed up. I said, yeah, so what we going to do? He said, man, I got to fix this. And how are you going to fix this? How long would it take to fix it? Then how will you know you did fix it? That's the point. I keep asking questions. My point is to get them to really thinking, to go through this experience. Now, I know that in counseling, I'm not supposed to have my religious beliefs as a part of this. But everything I do has a spiritual component to it. I just don't come across as that. I'm preaching to them. But I'm teaching them biblical principles. And every time we talk about that, and self-talk is another thing, this young man, the prodigal, did it. So everything, the Bible is not a quote, a book about psychology or counseling or anything like that, but everything about counseling in here is true. So I utilize the Bible every day because I know that those principles that I find there are the same principles that they need out here. They just don't have a spiritual opponent to it. Right? Let's read what it says in there. Somebody will be reading verse 17. Listen what he said. And when he did what? Someone read that for me. When he came to himself.
But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger?
How many of them came to himself? They have bread enough and to do what? They didn't just have bread enough. They had bread what? Yeah. So here's the point. He said back here and said, man, even my father's servants better off than I am. Oh, I messed up. He came to himself, started thinking. He realized then and there that he did not appreciate all the things that was provided for him in his growing up years. So here we are. We need to learn how to appreciate all the things that God has given unto us. If not, we have a tendency to lose those things. And if we don't lose those things, we have the tendency to lose ourselves. That's why he said he came to himself. We either lose the things or lose ourselves, or we lose our things and ourselves. But one thing we do know, we lost something. We need to learn how to appreciate all the things that God's given unto us, all that our family has given unto us. Because we'll look back one day, realize, man, I messed it up. So he wants to go back. He didn't appreciate it, and here it is. How many of you know just somebody in life, it could even be yourself, that you look back on it and simply said, listen, I really didn't know how good I had it. You do that? You sit back in and simply say, oh, man, I thought, oh, my God, if I had to do it over again, I'd do something differently. Why? Because we're like this wasteful person. We have a tendency to just have no sense of accounting for all the things that has been given unto us and utilizing it, not only just for our good, but for someone else's good. Who has Galatians 6:10? I know one time they said, the Bible said, let him that stole steal no more, but rather let him labor with his own hands, that he may give to him who have need. So life is not just about providing for me and my need. Life is about having the opportunity to help someone in that need. So you start looking at it, you start saying, hey, I have responsibility, number one, to care for my family, which is what I'm doing. But it's also good to be able to work or to have that you can help someone else as well. Is that right? Galatians, what is that, 6:10, something like that? What does it say? Galatians 6:10.
So then, while we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, and especially to those who are of the household of the faith.
Yeah, whole point of it is, see, I'm just not having things just to take care of my family, my immediate family, but I'm also to have something to the point to where I can help somebody. And that's why I let him to steal no more. It's not only forgiveness is not, I don't want to get into anybody else's subject. It's not just stop doing something wrong. Forgiveness is about starting and beginning to do something right. Somebody said, well, I repented. What do? I stopped. You stopped. Okay, is that enough? No, not really. Let him to steal no more, but rather let him labor. If you're going to show real repentance, you can't just stop working, But you need to start working so you can give back, because all you've been doing is taking. So now it's about time for you to start giving, right? Oh, I know y'all like this. That's all right. Any questions? So here we are, sitting here, trying to get him to move forward. And he said, I'm going to rise up. I'm perishing with hunger. I will do what? What am I going to do? I'm going to rise up, number one. Right? That signifies what? It's just like the phoenix rising. Taking responsibility. He's down, isn't he? And he needs to come back up. I'm going to rise. And there's a Greek word, istemi. I'm going to rise. I'm going to get back up on my feet, and I'm going to take a stand for that which is right, and I'm going to do what's right. When we said soldiers of Christ arise, what we don't do, just take a stand? No. It's more than just getting up. It's about getting out and doing something. So he said, I'm going to rise. I'm going to come out of this, get up from this dirt I'm in, out of this mud hole I'm in, all of this decadent situation I am, and then guess what? I'm going to rise up. I'm going to stand up, take a stand, and do the right thing. And after I get up and get out of this squalor, I'm going to rise up, I'm going to get up, and I'm going to start walking towards home to get things right. Why? Because appreciation for things, yes, it brings about remorse, but it also brings about a determination to do that which is right. Number one, I can't do nothing unless I get up out of what I'm in. He said, I'm going to rise. Is that what he said? Anybody else got another translation on that? He said, I will arise, number one. Then I'm going to go to the Father. Process. Rise. Go. Talk. Process. Rise. Go. Talk. There is an ideal of him returning, getting here. There is some steps, some ideal. There's a process going on here that he said, I got to go through these steps if I'm going to get back to where I am, if I'm going to enjoy life as I have and appreciate it and show my Father that I've had a change of heart. You left in a bad rush, son. That wasn't the way we had planned it. I thought I'd live out my years, and when I leave here, I get to say my final goodbyes to you and let you know that I've done all I could to try to prepare for you here and even after I'm gone. But I left. He did. And the Father didn't get to have that. It wasn't the way it's supposed to go. But when he came back, I rise, go, and I'm going to talk. And I realized that when you're down and out, somebody had a song. Who had that song? Nobody wants you when you're down and out. You remember that? Yes, sir, brother.
This is primarily about the sons, as we rightly emphasize. But there, in my judgment, is a tremendous lesson here for the fathers and the mothers. And that is, we have an obligation to provide for our children a better place than they will have if they go astray. And then they will want to come back. And I think that's why the Bible teaches that if we train children, that they will return if they have time and opportunity and so forth. So there's a burden on parents to provide that environment where the children will always want to come back to a better place. And if we don't have a better place for them to come back to, we can't blame them for not coming back.
That's true. You're right. You got to have them a reason to come back, right? You're exactly correct. That's correct. Well, a good comment. Anyone? Yes.
One of my favorite parts of the story is not all of the buildup that we've gotten to so far, but that once he's gotten up, he's made his mind, he's going back, he's humbling himself to go talk to his father. He just has to make part of that trip, and the father has compassion and runs to him. The father meets him where he is. And I look at my life and all the times I fall short, I don't have to do it all. I just have to change my heart to get to where God can meet me where I need to be at.
Good point. Good point. Excellent point. Family providing the environment that will cause them to come back. And this person will simply know and say, well, I'm going to give it all I've got. I'm coming back. And I'm just going to let my parents know that, yes, I know I let you down. I did. And I'm sorry for that. I don't even expect you to hold me up and just take me in all together. That's what people think about sometimes when people repent. They just think that everything's going to be like it was. You ever hear somebody say, I just want to go back to where it used to be? I don't like that. Because if you go back to where it used to be, it's going to be like it was. All right? So my point is, I don't like for it to say, well, why can't we be like we used to be? Because we're going to be like we are right now. We can't do that. We can be better. That's what you're looking for. And he looked down on that. Yeah, I got a father. Anybody else? I got a father. I'm going to make it back a good point. But parents have to have that environment that's conducive for children wanting it, realizing it. Can you imagine? He lost it all then, but nobody gave him anything. Man, when I was at home, I didn't want for nothing. Good point. Go ahead.
It touches me. It says, while he was a long way off, his father saw him and went to him. And that tells you that father had been looking for him to come back.
Can you imagine? He's looking for him, waiting on him. Parents go through some stuff too. I don't think children always understand that, right? So they're sitting there. See, he saw him before, right? And can you imagine how you look right there and you know your child so much? You can tell how they walk. You can tell how they talk. And you know, yeah, look like that's my boy right there. That's him. Yeah. I believe that's him. Yes. Somebody else saying something? Isn't that amazing? Fall off. There he is. I mean, he hadn't forgotten them. And good parents do love their children, and most do. They don't forget their children, even if they leave, go away. They're in emotional problem, just wondering how they are. No communication, isolation. Boy, that's rough on parents too. Yes.
We have examples where Christ received people that the world thought were just terrible people.
True.
So he set the example. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. I'm here. My arms are open.
Okay.
Whatever that degree of wrong is, didn't matter to him.
Yeah.
That was a soul that needed to be reached out to.
So, excellent point. And you got this son coming back. That's all I'm just going to say. He really just said, all I just want is just, I'll be the servant. You ain't got to treat me like this and that. I just want to be back home. I just want to be back. I realize I've missed it. All the things we've had, parents providing, get them a better place, but yet all of these emotional problems, back home with the dad. And can you imagine when he saw this? I saw him as my son. I know that walk. I don't know if he hollered at him or not, but he know that talk. That's my boy's voice. Oh, that's my baby girl right there. I hear her. That's amazing. That's amazing. But let's appreciate the inheritance, not just after a while, but what we give them right now, as you talked about, loving home, listening ear, welcoming on, forgiving hearts. All of those things, once they do hit the bottom, I hope it doesn't get to that point, but I hope they realize and say, boy, this is totally opposite of what I had at home. I realize now. I'm going to get back up on my feet. I'm going to go, and I'm just going to have a conversation. Well, sometimes just coming in, barely clothed, all disheveled, that's enough right there. They just come and you just grab and just hold them. And he might simply say, Dad, I'm sorry. And all he said, I know, son. And live alone. Yes.
I have often heard that you can never come home again. And I used to believe that until I was riding down the road and I saw a tomb rock and it had my name on it. And that told me that all of us are going to go home again.
Oh, yeah.
And so it ought to give us pause to consider how are we coming back. Penitent like this fellow, or rebellious like his brother was.
This is nice. Good thought. Good point. Make those applications to our lives. Let's appreciate all the great things we got. We live in a great nation. We've been blessed. Even those who here that don't have as much in consideration are blessed. So we need to realize that we ought to give thanks to God. Thanks to those who perhaps lead us, our families, our church families, all the people involved in our lives who make our lives so much better. And we ought to be able to thank them for that and have it as part of our daily kind of talk time with God about. And if we pray a lot about it, keep our minds on it, I hope we don't have to go through all of this just to get us to appreciate the blessings that we've had and how we've just destroyed things, and hope that we can get back with the people whom we've hurt in the process. But he did. I'm going to tell that. I got it in my mind. I know what I'm going to say. I just can't wait to get there to say it. And I'm going to tell him I'm not worthy to be your son like this no more. And make me a hired servant. Just let me work for you. Well, all I know that sometime when we get off track, all I know is that sometime when we just goes against everything that we have been taught, that if we have that home, we remember it. And most times people try to make their way back. I know the young lady who left her home, and because there were some issues there, and things were really bad. People leave. People run away from home, not because they had a good one sometime. They run away sometime because they had bad ones. And they ask them, say, well, you run away. When are you going to go back home? Say, I'm not going back. Why aren't you going back? That was a bad place. And I'm not going back. And then there are some people who get taken away. I was looking at a documentary just the other night where the young lady was taken away. And all she could ever think about is getting back home. And she finally made it back. Her family said, we know you've been through a lot. We can just all imagine. Young girl, 12 years old. Got back about a year or two later. And here she was now. And all that her family did was just simply embrace her, welcome her back. And listen, she appreciated. I mean, when you're locked up, tied down, restricted, and when that is something opposite of what you've been used to doing, this prodigal I didn't realize I didn't appreciate it perhaps as much as I should. not just the things I got, but the person who gave them, the one who provided. Maybe I didn't take it as well as I did. I don't know about you all. Some of you parents, your parents are still here on this side of time. But then again, there are a lot of us whose parents has marched on. They've left time and gone into eternity. They have. And all we can just simply say is that, the older I get, yeah, Mom had her ways, but I appreciate her now more than ever. I didn't know how smart my mother was. I didn't. I always just thought she was just out of time. She was a relic, that's what I'm thinking. But I got older, and I said, you know what? She was pretty smart. And that's the way we do it sometimes. We don't really appreciate or recognize the goodness of those, the greatness of those, the love of those who before us until that time. Time to go. I appreciate you all for being over here and listening to me. And I appreciate your comments big time. Thanks so much.